Welcome to the Rural Reboot Podcast. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and today I'm joined by Doug Pohl, and you are the CEO of Health Tech Content.
That's right, yeah.
Is that how we want to talk to you today?
Sure. I like that. Sounds
Chief
official.
Executive Officer, Chief Operating Officer.
You can throw founder in there.
Founder. Yeah, there we go. Owner. All the fancy buzzwords.
Yeah. So long as they're fancy, I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could you do a little bit of an overview of what Health Tech Content is?
Yes, yeah. So we do content marketing for technology companies that sell into the healthcare industry.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say content, I mean anything that's consumable by prospects, then that's kind of what we're going for.
Mm-hmm.
Do a lot of written stuff, but we're open to everything.
So you cover everything from blog posts to case studies to video content, podcasts, the whole gamut, right?
Absolutely. Website,
Mm-hmm.
animation even.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you think of rural, you don't really think of like, oh, health tech content. This is a company that supports tech companies in the healthcare industry. Like that's a lot of words that usually you don't relate to rural. Could you talk a little bit about your process of setting up the business?
Yeah. So, it kind of just fell into my lap. How much history do you want here?
Let's get into the weeds. So
Okay.
I want to touch on the company itself, and then we're going to go on your history and your journey through that.
So, the company itself was actually remarkably easy to set up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Colorado gives a lot of good resources for getting everything, kind of official and registered. But so I knocked that out pretty quickly at the end of last year when I realized that I was either going to have to start turning down work or find a way to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I formalized the business, and it's been growing ever since.
Yeah. What was the motivation behind this specific segment of the industry?
Well, I think in a lot of ways healthcare is broken,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure we've all experienced that on some level as a patient or as a family member or caregiver. There's a lot of things wrong with
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, and thankfully there's a lot of brilliant people out there who recognize these problems and are trying to fix them. That's where the technology comes in. So these really like ingenious solutions, designed to fix these really complex issues. And I'm not really in either one of those camps. I don't deliver care, and I don't have the technology skills to create a solution, but I'm somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
And with content and developing these marketing materials, I can help bridge that gap between the solutions and the people who need them the most and where they can do the most good.
Yeah. And you're an excellent writer, by the way.
Thank you.
I was having a meeting with my business partner. We're setting up a lot of different things and operations and just systems in place to get even more organized. We're in Colorado, he's in Norway, so we need to have a system in place to have like, okay, when I'm asleep, he knows what to do. When he's asleep, I know what to do. So we have this kind of back and forth. And I was like, okay, you know what we're going to do? healthtechcontent.com, blog post, scroll down. Oh, hey, look, I took these pictures. Also, boom, these are the 6 key pieces you need to have for a marketing plan.
Awesome.
So I can speak to the
it's huge, man. Thank
effectiveness
you.
to this.
Oh, that's great. That's what it's there for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it's helpful.
Oh, yeah. And I think something that's super interesting with your specific industry, too, is the level of knowledge. You're the middleman between healthcare, tech, and delivering this content that needs to be consumed as well as understood, right?
Right. Yeah. It's health tech or healthcare and technology are both kind of notorious for the way that they speak to prospects.
Both very different, right?
Yeah, very different, but also very bad.
Mm.
It's technology. I think the marketing's getting better now in recent years, but historically, it's been very technical, very feature driven, very much about the software or the technology itself. And similarly, healthcare is very much about the science behind it or the kind of the complex contributing factors, those types of things, and less about the patient, right? So like what I try to do is focus on the patient on one end, and well, no, that's not true. I try to focus on the patient on both sides. So the patient's somewhere in the middle of those two. Yeah. And if you focus there and let your periphery bring in those things that really matter to the patient, kind of like a Venn diagram, then I think that's where we can do the most good.
Yeah, you need that motivation, the understanding of who is this helping, not just, oh, hey, we have this cool thing.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it is the patient, right? There's somebody struggling with something very real, and family members who are concerned and clearly stressed, for good reason. And so if you can help communicate a helpful idea that really matters to them, I mean, that's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's what people are looking for too.
Yeah. And the same thing goes for the providers who are giving the care. I mean, people behind the scenes who are trying to help these patients, their heart is in the right place. They went through however much schooling and education and training because they care and they want to help. And then they get into a job that makes it very difficult for them to do exactly what they want to do. It's hard to help because of all these contributing factors that kind of slow down progress or just hinder them, kind of tie their hands in some way. And so these solutions, there are a lot of them that are really targeted toward the providers. And I think it's important to think of providers for those solutions in the same way that we think about patients.
Yeah.
When a solution is geared toward them, like there's a very clear need, and it's very emotional and very real, very human.
Definitely. Switching gears entirely, let's talk about where you started, because you have we worked on a project together, and then we started asking you some questions. We went on like a picnic together, and we're like, okay, who is this guy? And apparently you have had quite the music career even before this, right?
Yes. I was a professional country music songwriter and touring performer for 13 years.
Which
it lines up perfectly with health tech
the
marketing,
experience
right?
goes straight to healthcare.
Yeah, very linear path.
Yes. So could you talk a little bit about what got you into the music side of things and kind of your journey to what we touched on at the beginning?
I'll try to not be too long-winded here, but it's
let's just condense 13 years of professional songwriting experience.
Oh man, I could take all the way back to 6th grade if you really want. But no, music has always been a thing for me, always. And I lost a bet in high school to a girl who wanted me to try out for the choir.
Okay.
And so I got in, I made it, I did well, ended up winning state in Texas, and got a good scholarship to the University of Texas.
So you really won the bet.
In the long run, maybe. So I was always on that musical path, but I chose the University of Texas because it was in Austin, and it was a big school that had a lot of options for me to, academically, but it was also in Austin, which is this is back in right around the turn of the century. And I mean, it's a lot smaller town, very music centric still. And so, I went down there to visit, fell in love in a weekend, and pretty much forgot about all my other school options. Right. And, I left the choral path, but stuck with music and got into the country music down there and started writing songs and doing all that. And I just stuck with it. Even after I graduated, I stayed in Austin. I lived in a band with my house, lived in a house with my band. And you can imagine there probably a story or two came from that.
Did any songs come out of that experience?
No, of course not. Yeah, but it was great. I mean, we didn't even have a TV in the house. We would all stay in our respective rooms during the day. And then around happy hour time, we'd kind of come out one at a time, and we'd sit in the living room, all across from each other, and take turns choosing records to listen to, and we'd talk about the music. And
that is the most Austin thing I've ever heard in my life.
Right? Yeah. It was great. I mean, I learned a lot of cool stuff about music, and then that night we'd go out and play, and that was our job, and we'd earn that way and get up and do it again the next day. So did that for a while. Then I wanted to focus on songwriting, so I went to Nashville and wrote songs out there, and got started feeling a bit burned out at that point. Been going on for a while, and then that's when I got into healthcare stuff. So I moved to Houston, met a girl, now my wife, and moved to Houston and got a job working in the warehouse for a medical device company. They thought that maybe I was capable of doing more than shipment, so they gave me the opportunity to create the first inside sales department that they'd ever had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a very, very cool opportunity. They had a product that was kind of sluggish, and they wanted to promote it. And they gave me nice commission incentive to do that. And I think they regretted that structure a bit.
This guy's doing too well.
Right? So that was good. Got a lot of great experience from that. Then moved to a different company doing, they called it marketing, but basically recruiting highly specialized doctors to review insurance claim appeals. And I was pretty awesome at that. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I guess I will. But I really enjoyed it. Was the thing. They'd send me some weird specialty you've never heard of, and I would find a way to get to these people and get them on the phone, which is extremely difficult. There's gatekeepers everywhere. Yeah. But I actually had one guy talk to me as he was, I forget what he did, some sort of neurosurgery, but talked to me as he was stepping off the plane in Nepal on his way to go climb Mount Everest. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, Doug. I'm like, what?
No problem, buddy.
Yeah. Wow. But yeah, so did that, and then fast forward a little bit later, I became the in-house writer for a software company based out of Australia. It was a practice management platform for allied health providers. So, think yoga studios, masseuse, acupuncture,
okay.
but mostly physical therapy, osteopath, that type of stuff. And did that for a while. And then in between all this, I was doing lots of freelancing, and then went back to freelancing after that. And then that's when I started noticing a big shift in how things, in the types of work that I was being approached with. So lots of health tech. It was just every time I turned around, it was more health tech, and clients were coming to me with more and more and bringing me different accounts. I didn't even have to go searching; it was just coming to me. So I figured that's when I got to the point I have to make this official so we can actually do this work and help people and get this stuff out there. Yeah. Because otherwise, you say no, and then they're going to keep struggling. But if you can help, you should, right?
Yeah. So why Fremont County?
Oh man, there's another long-winded answer.
You've obviously you've had experience all across the country. You've had experience in a variety of different job paths. What brought you to here, and why do you enjoy it so much?
Well, I grew up in a big city and spent pretty much my entire life in one big city or another, but had lots of rural experiences. Even as a kid, on all the way up, I was either digging post holes for a fence, or helping with the livestock, or just fishing and camping, whatever. I did a lot, and I spent a lot of time in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado, so I knew I liked the area a bit. My wife's also from northern New Mexico, and we wanted to get out of the big city. We wanted to get off the interstate, because if you're on the interstate, you can live in any city. They're all the same. Yeah, they all have the same issues, and I'm kind of done with all of them. We just wanted a smaller place, slower pace of life, and we looked at a lot of different areas of Colorado, and every time I'd look at Canyon, and I'd say well, I like this and this, but and there was always a but then I'd go and look at another place. I'm like, yeah, that one's okay, but Canyon City, that's, and I just kept coming back. And every time we'd think we liked somewhere else, and we just always kept coming back to Canyon City, and came to visit a couple times, and really fell in love at that point. But it's got everything that we're looking for. It really does.
And you're you're a great example of someone who can live and work anywhere, as you have, and find success. What are some of the ways that you've faced any challenges from rural, and then kind of overcome those through your practice?
Well, honestly, I don't feel like I've had a lot of challenges with rural. I think if you just decide that that's the way it's going to be for your business, then that's how it is. And they don't feel like challenges to me. I think living in an urban area and spending an hour driving to my office every morning, that's a challenge. Yeah. That would make me mad every day. It would. Yeah. But but here, I don't know, maybe one day or two, the internet was a little flaky. That's it, right? Yeah. I mean, you can hire from anywhere, but we're blessed that we have a lot of great talent here in this area. So I'm so glad that we got the chance to work together, because if I can work with someone here in Fremont County, I mean, that's a bonus. But so that's always a good place to start. But then you can branch out. You can hire anywhere. I mean, the potential is limitless as far as I see.
Before I got involved in the FEDC space, like I was making podcasts on Star Wars Battlefront at the time, and was convinced I was the only person in digital, like doing anything in the digital world. I would have to save up money, go to Denver and do it all there. But slowly I became more aware of the availability through the technology to work from anywhere, because I love the outdoor activities that we have here, the community that has been built up around tech in the area. It's really special.
It is. It's absolutely special. Even I feel like the urban areas get a lot of attention for being more technology driven, or at least aware.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, when I was living in these big cities, I was pretty resistant to technology in general. Like, I was like, I don't want that stuff. I don't want to be a part of it. Just give me my guitar and leave me alone, And that's really how I felt. But as I started to transition away from music, I realized that attitude's really going to leave me behind, and was already kind of making me feel separate, which is ironic when you're surrounded by so many people and you feel so distant from those around you. Whereas after I embraced that, especially after I worked for the Australian company, we had team members, I don't know, probably in over a dozen different time zones, and it works just fine.
Yeah.
And actually really well. That was an amazingly well-run company doing some great things. And they did it all asynchronously. Like you do something, you go to bed, you wake up, your partner's taken over, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And just progress continues. And so that opened my eyes to a lot and helped me grow from a technological standpoint, which then I've been able to springboard and realize, like, oh, we really can live anywhere we want. We can create any business we want, and we can probably do this in a way where, like, we can create multiple businesses. We can do lots of different things. We can pursue our hobbies and interests and all this stuff, and it's super easy. And when you're in a place like this where you've got this beautiful place, the Emergent Campus, and all these great things happening, these like other people also pursuing their own version of that same dream.
Yes.
I mean, you've got the encouragement and support to go along with those capabilities. And it's a cool thing. Even driving down here today, it's like, this is so cool that we have this.
It is.
It really is.
And I think too, obviously there are definitely pockets of this in cities and in those urban areas, but like the amount of support, like you said, in the community of like, oh, hey, you're doing something cool. I want to be able to support that. Let's work together. Like something that I love that we've seen so many times through the Emergent Campus and FEDC and all of this stuff is like, you have two people that were doing their own business. They started talking and they're like, let's start this other thing together. I mean, at the picnic, we're talking about like, what are some ways that we can bring some more culture and experiences to this area? I mean, like through that, we're like already storyboarding and ideation of those things.
Yeah.
And that was a couple meetings in and we're already rocking and rolling.
Right. It's kind of like our little community. It's its own startup, right?
It is.
Like, things can happen quickly. Decisions are made fast, and you can just act on them and figure it out as you go. Right?
Yeah. Versus
when you're in a more densely populated area, you gotta get past this person. Hey, can you introduce me to so and so? Whatever. Like I feel like there are often a lot of restrictions that we don't see here.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It's great.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, exactly. And like you have this availability to do so much. Like you said, you can fulfill your hobbies. I don't know if I've told anybody this story, but like I went skydiving in the morning, and then immediately after skydiving, I took a call for a video project from my car.
You're just so amped up, and your hair's all windblown.
Exactly. So that's like some of the things that you can do. You can on your lunch break go mountain biking. Like you can have these experiences that are very rare to have in other areas, just because of the amount of time it takes to get to the location.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like trail running, so I'll drop the kiddo off at school and hit the trail for a while on my way back home to go to work, before my first meeting, and I can do all that before 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Versus when I'll have a friend come into town, I'll take them to the same trail, and it feels like the most unique experience they've ever had. Well, in trail running, maybe. and it's, but at the same time, like, it's really cool to recognize that and know how special of a place we have, like FAR is another great organization that makes those trails possible. And,
Yes.
and there's big community support behind that too. So we're very fortunate, and so far I haven't taken it for granted. I don't think so anyway.
Enjoy every second of it.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Switching gears just a little bit. You are, we had a photo shoot getting stuff for your blog posts. And through that, you're talking about the power of writing. And I would just want to kind of hear your thoughts of what are some of your experiences with the power of writing, as well as how it can be brought into something like a marketing agency like you run.
Yeah. So I think when we were talking, we were talking about kids, right? And teaching them, or like the desire to help kids understand the power that they have if they can just learn how to harness it.
Yes.
So I think I came across that sensation through songwriting. When you can write a song that makes somebody cry, that's a big deal.
Yes.
I don't want to make people sad, but it's cool to make someone feel
that's my
something.
goal anytime I write something.
Right.
If I get some emotion out of it, I've done something good.
That's it though. It's the emotion, right? Or if you can make them laugh or I don't know, feel a profound thought that maybe they hadn't considered. Like that is a big deal. And so there's a power in words and in communication in general. And I think it's important that we can help the younger generation understand that and harness it. And then pushing that into a marketing sphere, it still boils down to those emotions, especially in health tech, where, there are some big feelings that people are having, and you have to touch into that, but at the same time, not too deeply. I mean, you don't want to make a prospect cry, but you want to acknowledge their pain and the feelings that they're having, and then be like, hey, like, you're feeling these things, but you don't have to. There is a better way. Here's one of them.
Yeah.
And so, there's big power in words. I could talk for days about that. I try to keep it concise for you.
Oh, you talking about that sparked another question. Where do you see kind of the future of marketing going? Because that's something that has changed so drastically, even just in the last 5 years.
Yeah. No. So I'm one of those weird marketers where I'm actually also really big on online privacy. A lot of marketers, they want that data, and I don't. I want to keep my information for myself. And so I try to not rely on that information from others to create what I do. So thankfully, there's some changes coming about there. So Google's already taken some pretty big steps back, which has been an interesting adjustment for me. Even like being a proponent of privacy, and now I'm trying to do my work. I'm like, where's the information?
This is so dumb.
What's wrong with people? But no, I think it's great, and I think especially from a content perspective, it's really going to bring the focus back onto. Hopefully, we'll bring the focus back onto the people, and bringing that human aspect to marketing that I think is really the best route anyway. It's more effective. It makes people feel better. Even if they don't buy your product, they feel better about your brand, and hopefully it does that. I really think it will. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I think we're seeing this in a very unique way with kind of like content creators and people with these platforms too, just seeing how, I mean, I say this many, many times and it's not a unique thought, but people are drawn to people. And I think that's so, it's very cool to see it in such of a large light now, where we see these bigger companies start to approach individual content creators or influencers. That word in and of itself has so many different connotations, but in terms of people with platforms that you can kind of do more with, and with the whole privacy side of things, you have ingrained in the content creation or the content marketing side of things, you have the initial audience. So you don't necessarily need those specific numbers on who their audience is. You can do that based on the type of content that they create.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's going to be an interesting change in our marketing that we do.
No, absolutely. You bring up a good point with influencers. I think that's definitely kind of one of the forefronts of the new marketing world. A bunch of companies are already taken the lead there. I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, podcasts are still going strong,
Mm-hmm.
and you're seeing a lot of advertising coming from that. And I think that's kind of interesting how it's, in some ways, marketing's kind of turning backwards and getting back to the old school ways. Remember the old, this is the one I always think of, the Groucho Marx, his TV show, You Bet Your Life.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And he would like interrupt the show so that he could give a commercial himself.
Yeah.
Right. And you see that a lot in podcasts or different things. Right. And, YouTube, I guess, automates it. They'll interject some commercial for you in the middle of a video, but it's that same idea where you can kind of hone in on your audience without being invasive. And you can do that, like you said, like by finding the influencers and the content they're creating and what lines up best with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think something cool, like talking about the podcast side of things, is podcasters, I don't know where it came from, but I think it's because of it's more of like a scrappy type of upbringing through the history of podcasting. But something that's so cool to me is a lot of podcasters, they won't have a sponsor that they don't personally believe in or use. And that makes it even more valuable as a marketing platform, because you have that audience relationship as well as that trust that's built up over hundreds of episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a smart move to protect your reputation and your audience as an influencer. Also, too, it's a good way to drive up the value of your advertising. So, I mean, if your audience knows that you won't endorse a product that you don't use and believe in, that makes your endorsement even more valuable. So, I mean, it's a pretty smart move all around.
It is, yeah. What are some of the shifts that you've seen through your marketing stuff that you've been doing?
So it's interesting with what we do, where healthcare and technology are both kind of historically dry, especially healthcare, very academic even.
Yeah.
In some cases. I really try to help clients understand, like, if you speak like a human to a human, then you're going to be a lot better off.
Yeah.
Some clients struggle to understand that. I really try hard, but they don't always hear me. But I think that's becoming less of an issue. I think more and more brands are starting to understand what they really need to do, and using 8-syllable words isn't the best way to do it usually.
Do I have to think about how to pronounce this word?
Yeah.
Maybe don't use that.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to Instagram now.
Yeah. It's such an interesting idea too. Like you have a very unique place in this too, of where you have to take the complexities of tech, take the complexities of healthcare, and then bring it forward in such a approachable and digestible way, right?
Yeah, and that's honestly pretty tricky. That's the hardest part of what we do, and I think that's what makes us appealing to companies. It's every client that we work with has a different audience, and even the same client might have multiple audiences. So we might be working with pieces. We might be creating pieces designed for radiologists who are a very specific type of individual with very specialized needs. And if you can't speak directly to what they understand and live with every day, then you've lost them. And so you have to have that hyper focus on the tools that they use, what those tools do, how it helps them, what they don't like about them, all these things. And if you get one thing wrong, you've lost them. You've lost your reader. And then at the same time, you're working on, with a client where they do staffing, like nurse staffing, but they do it through remote telehealth.
Okay.
So they give telehealth services to help relieve the staffing shortages at hospitals, and that kind of stuff. And there's a whole different world of needs and problems and issues and terminology, and it's a tightrope for sure. Yeah.
What does that look like for your process to? Because you just gave me anxiety thinking about that. But it's true. You have to, especially for your kind of work, you have to be the expert, or at least know enough of the topic itself to speak to the people, to those experts, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they are the experts. You're right, and they know that I'm not. And they don't know that I wrote the piece necessarily, but they know that whoever wrote it probably isn't a radiologist, for example, just to keep with that. So you have to know enough to be relatable. But if you cross that line where you try to maybe you get too big for your britches,
Uh-huh.
think you know more than you do, they're gonna sniff you out a mile away. Yeah.
Just a personal question, like, what is your process between like switching between those mindsets? If you're going to like a radiologist to someone who does the staffing for a healthcare remote service, like what does that look like for you?
To actually create content like that?
Well, yeah, like do you schedule out like this type of content on this kind of day, or does it kind of weave in
Right.
between it?
Well, thankfully these days I'm not doing quite as much of the content creation myself, so that's nice.
You've leveled up. You've
have
gotten to that
writers.
level of business.
But I do still do some, and,
Yeah.
and I work on the strategy with clients. So there's still a lot of gear shifting going on. What I think in terms of writing, what's proven to be the most helpful for me is yes, scheduling things out where I'll have blocked off. Like I like to keep my mornings for deep work. And that's when I'll do my writings, when my brain is the most fresh.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'm doing, say, a rough draft on a white paper, I'll crank that out. Maybe it takes me 2 hours, but I'll sit down in one sitting and I'll finish it. It'll be ugly, and I would never let anyone look at that, but it'll be done.
Yeah.
Right? And then the next day during that same scheduled block, I might do the other piece for the staffing or whatever. And then on the third day, maybe I do a different client. But then on that fourth day, I'll come back to that first one and I'll revise it.
Yeah.
And so if you give yourself space in between where you're not going back to back too much, then it definitely helps because it just keeps your brain fresh.
Yeah.
Not every ideas don't become stale. They're always new. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I 100% subscribe to that. A lot of the times when I do podcasts is I'll record it one day and then I'll edit on a different day just because I'll catch things that I know I would never catch on that following day. Sometimes that doesn't work out. You just got to do it all in one day and all that stuff. But most of the time you need that kind of space to breathe.
Oh, for sure. And I think the process goes faster too when you have that space. Like if you try to do it all in the same day, the revisions, at least for me, I just zone out for a bit. Like, wait, where was I? What was I doing? How much? Like just gonna black out. Like, how long have I been out? What happened?
All of a sudden you wake up and there's a white paper there that you don't remember writing.
Yeah. This guy's a terrible writer.
Who is this? Yeah. I think it's interesting too. And I really like your LinkedIn posts and your blog posts. And what does that look like in terms of how you utilize the strategy that you build out through these blog posts and through these LinkedIn posts? Like, what does that look like for you to kind of offer that up for people to take in?
Well, first of all, it's still very much a work in progress. Like I'm constantly reevaluating what I'm doing and why and whether or not it's working. I think for me, well, first of all, I'm not really into social media personally. Like I don't do it at all, other than these LinkedIn posts where, you know, on one hand, if I share a blog post that we have on the site, like, you know, it's a new site, helps with brand awareness, maybe get a little bit of traffic coming. Google likes that. You get a small benefit, but it's pretty nominal. But I think the bigger point is like if you're genuinely trying to help, it's the thing. It comes back to being a human and talking to humans and being just a real person. Like if you're genuinely trying to help, which I feel like I am in my business, like I really actually want to help people. If that's the case, then I should find ways to help people. And I'm so glad that like you actually found value in a blog post because that's the friggin' point.
Yeah.
Like I want to help. And it doesn't matter. Like obviously you don't own a health tech company. Like you're not going to be a client.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Like if I have knowledge that I can share, maybe it's helpful to some people. Awesome. I should put it out there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what's the point in having it? I mean, I don't know. There's got to be more than just making a buck, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And in the long run, I think the business probably does better because of it.
You have that continued awareness, even if it's not you. Like the experience I had is there's probably other people that have had that same experience of like, oh, hey, I read this thing over here. It may not work for me, but hey, it may work for my buddy who owns a healthcare company, or it may work for this person that does a tech company, or a combination. Like I think it's. And just speaking to that passion that you have about bettering. I think it just speaks to the ethics of your company and the passion behind your company of putting this stuff out. At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, that's definitely what we're going for. I don't know when I adopted this. I don't know that I created it, but heard it somewhere. Who knows? But I try to live by the motto, like, work hard, be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. And if you do that, things will work out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me however many years ago that I'd be doing this instead of standing center stage at the Grand Ole Opry,
Mm-hmm.
like, I wouldn't believe you.
Yeah.
Like, I won't. I don't even like computers. What are you talking about? But if you're nice and you generally try to help people,
Mm-hmm.
and you go about your business in a smart, ethical way, then good things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, especially like on a social platform, back to your question, like, I think people can tell. They know when you're trying to sell them something.
Mm-hmm.
They know when you're being genuine. And that's kind of the line where, like, I really try to focus on now is, like, am I sharing this information because I actually think it's helpful, or is this just what I think I'm supposed to say? Which I've done a lot of the latter.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to correct that now, where
It's a tough balance.
It is, so, like, now I try to just talk about things that I'm currently dealing with on a given day, rather than talking about, like, writing processes or things like that, things I know.
Mm-hmm.
I can touch on that at some point if I feel like that's a big deal for me in a day. But, like, right now I'm doing some hiring and been doing interviews. So, like, I'm posting about interviews
Mm-hmm.
and kind of the struggles I've had with finding the right people.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a difference.
And it's very timely too. Like, you're dealing with it, but also hundreds of thousands of other people are dealing with it too. So I think it's one of those things that you may have an experience, and this is like, if you listening to this are a business owner looking into kind of expanding that side of things, like, this is something that you need to be aware of. Like, these are some problems that you may want to think you're special, but in the nicest way possible, you aren't. So everyone runs into very similar things, and I think it's good to have those resources out there for that.
You're right. I mean, we're not necessarily special, but at the same time, so I struggle with that for a long time, and I think I'm now finally starting to realize that I may not be, like, a diamond in the rough, one of a kind, but I have lots that I can offer.
Exactly. You can speak to a similar experience with your, or something that someone may be facing, but also you have a unique side of it as well.
Right. Sometimes it just helps to hear it from someone else or in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to throw this out there too, one of the things I think is really important especially for a newer business, or maybe just a newer attempt at creating a social presence, I think it's helpful to focus on one platform, get really good at that, and then start branching out.
That's something I've not heard before. That's what's been your strategy on that? Like, how have you been?
For me, it's LinkedIn, just because that's where my prospects live.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of healthcare marketers, for example, who spend a lot of time on Twitter. So that's kind of my next place that I'll go to, but I'm not there yet. I want to build up more of a following on LinkedIn, and I want to hear what that audience has to say. The people who follow me, I want to learn from them and see the types of information that they're most interested in, what's most helpful for them. And then I can use all of those experiences and information to then inform what I do on the next platform.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I've been reading a book by Ryan Holiday on Stoicism. And one of the things that's like a clear, like, if you were to boil down Stoicism to like one point, it would be like, focus on one thing, get really good at it, and that's what you do. And I think that's something, especially in the world of social media, where it's like, no, you need to post on all these places, you need to do all these things, you need to do this. It's very refreshing to say, hey, find the platform that your customer is most likely to be on, make great content there, and once you figure out what great content is, that's when you can kind of expand, right? Yeah,
exactly. Working with a client currently, I think they have like 8 social icons at the bottom of their website.
Oh gosh.
And it's a small team. That's a massive amount of work to keep up with.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a social platform that you're not keeping up with, it makes you look bad. But if you just don't have it to begin with, it doesn't make you look anything.
Exactly.
And nothing is better than bad. So just find that one platform, start there, get really good at it, and then use it on the next one. And like I said, find out what great content means for your audience on that platform, and then do it on the next one. And you can also repurpose, see it on LinkedIn every day. Somebody takes a screenshot of their Twitter post and puts it on LinkedIn. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it almost adds another layer of like legitimacy. I feel a lot of people use it like that, of like, oh, hey, especially if it gets some reach on another platform, you can include the heart and the retweets on the screenshot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gets you followers on the other platform. It's some people, I think there are some maybe some LinkedIn purists, we'll call them, who might look down on that. And there is proof that maybe it doesn't get as much reach as something else, but it works. And it's always good to repurpose content, but you got to start by having great content in the first place.
I think that's too. Another podcast that we're going to be doing is kind of like the rural marketing side of things, but this ties in directly to that. Is something that I see a lot is a lot of local businesses think that you have to have unique content all the time. Like you need to have a unique voice, but you can utilize a blog post. You can utilize the meat of that, put it into a social post. You can make a video on it. Like there are things you can do like that.
Oh, absolutely. I like to start, because we write so many white papers, so I start with that. And, just to put us all on the same page here, white papers will say like generally at least 2,000 words, anywhere between 2 and 5. And so it's a big, meaty piece, lots of information. No one wants to read that unless you've kind of built them up to that point, right? So it takes some effort to convince someone to do that. So one way you can do that is you repurpose. So then you take some of those sections from your white paper, turn each of those into a blog article.
Yes.
Right? And then you take a single blog article and you take your headings, so you have 3 to 5 different headings in that article. Then you summarize those and you put that in a social post. You've summarized it, throw in a link to that article, and there you go. So now you have social feed. And then you can also take those same ideas and put them into an infographic. So you can share in a bunch of different places, your email newsletter, your socials, whatever. Also put it into the blog article itself. It's a good way to keep people scrolling through the page as well. But yeah, I mean, there's always something you can do, and it all started with one piece of content. I think the smart thing to do is to start big, see what that biggest thing that you need to do is, and then before you start creating anything, break it up and figure out exactly what you're going to do, what that repurposing strategy looks like, and how you're going to distribute each of those pieces.
Yeah. I mean, it's vital. I've a lot of last week has been strategizing for a podcast network that I run called Uplink Media Group. The main show is Star Wars Uplink, so it's a Star Wars gaming and TV show podcast. And we tried a bunch of different things. They didn't really stick. We restarted it with a new strategy. It stuck. Nice. And that new strategy, a key part of it is, okay, short form video content is a good promoter of the content. Those little sound bites, put those on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Put those all up there. Obviously, that's antithetical to what we talked about earlier.
Proving me wrong, Sage. Come on now.
But it's that one content. We're focusing on the one kind of content on those platforms versus just...
Do you say the same thing on each platform?
Yes, it's the same video content on each platform on the same day at the same time.
Very cool.
But we have different audiences on each of those. So it's kind of flipping what we talked about earlier on its head. Like, focus on one thing. That is that content.
Right.
It just happens to be on these different platforms.
Gotcha.
We'll see what works, what doesn't work. We'll adapt it. The main thing is getting awareness. But we record one podcast episode. We get 3 short form clips that are less than 1 minute. And then we also have 5 to 8 minute clips that we upload on the YouTube channel, promote that as well. That is 1, 4, and 6 to 7 pieces of content from one 45-minute recording.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about, especially for small marketing teams. Or if you're doing it yourself. I mean, like make it easy. Make it easy.
That is the key thing.
Absolutely. And you can, because it works. Like, you don't have to get crazy on this stuff. You really don't. And it can work. I think the short form videos are a unique thing where maybe the formatting doesn't have to be different. Where say like a written post on Instagram is going to be very different from what you post on LinkedIn if you wanted to get traction on either one.
Exactly.
Right? So, but in a short form video,
if I was writing stuff, it would be.
Yeah,
I would not want to do multiple platforms. Period.
No, it's rough.
It is.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the short form video is definitely a smart move, and yeah, you're smart to put that in different places. That's cool.
That's one of those things that you kind of have to be aware of as a business owner. And I know you're definitely experiencing this, right, with your side of things, of managing teams, of focusing on, you started the business, you were doing everything. And then as you grow, you find people that can specialize in those things. That's one person that does that thing. Right. It's one person that does that thing. Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting experience, right?
Oh yeah, man, I'm all about delegation. I'm trying to slave away every day.
That is the key factor of someone who's going to make a great business and someone who's going to make maybe an okay business. Can they delegate tasks? Dude, and that's the key to growth, right?
I want to go fishing. I don't know. To me, it seems it's always just been a no-brainer, and I think this goes back to my music days too. Like, I sought out the best musicians possible, and I brought them in. I treated them well. I paid them well. I gave them everything they needed to be successful and feel good about what they were doing. And because of that, I had an awesome band. And I worked with the best producers on my records, and I was able to do things that maybe I couldn't have done otherwise because you find the right people to do what you can't do. You find the best people, and then you take on that responsibility to keep them engaged.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's on us as the business owners to really shoulder that burden and keep them happy.
It's hard to get in that mindset too. I notice I want to get to that point, but I definitely notice some key areas where I'm lacking in terms of letting go a little bit,
Oh, you got the "it's my baby" syndrome.
Yes. So I'm trying to wean it off right now.
I think a lot of people have that. I probably did at some point. I'm not sure when I shed it, but it comes with its own difficulties too, because you don't want to be too eager to let something go, because you need to know the next person's actually capable of seeing it through to the vision that you have in your mind. I think it's okay for us to have a clear idea of what we want and to communicate that, and we definitely want to find people who can help us reach that goal, but we have to be flexible in everything that we do. And I think it's especially true when we're working with others, where they're bringing unique experiences to the table that we don't have. And so we need to allow some wiggle room for them to impact the work. Yeah. Because I'm not the best at everything. I'm probably not even the best at a lot of things, just some things, right? And so if someone's helping me with something, let them make it better. But that's when you have a clear idea of what you want, which you must have in order to pursue these things. You have to have a clear idea, but it's kind of a catch-22 because it makes you a little bit clingy to your own ideas. It's a tough balance. I think it's one that we just get better with over time.
Yeah, definitely. There was a project a couple weeks ago that I was working through, and there was a struggle with a certain aspect of the edit. And it was like, okay, well, they were hung up on one thing. I was like, okay, let's they couldn't quite nail it down what it was. It's like, okay, let's switch it up just a little bit.
Vague feedback.
And these are industry experts. They couldn't quite get it right. And I was like, okay, let's switch it up just a little bit. And they're like, I don't know what you did, but it works now. Like, okay. But it's those types of things where, and I just had an intern for a little while, and she's working on a video project for me, editing a podcast, and gave her the tools that she needed, and then was able to have a really unique aspect just from something that was like, okay, we've got the tools what you need. Go edit the podcast. I'm going to work on this other thing. And when I came back, it's like, oh, I never would have thought to do it that way, but I really like that. That's and we're able to get a new experience through that.
Very cool. No, that's exactly what you want, isn't it? I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah. What has been your process with finding different people to join you on this expansion conquest?
It's been rough, honestly. The type of work that we do is, like we've talked about, it's intricate and tricky, to say the least. And so it's been tough finding writers, especially who can navigate that.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying before, I do take on the responsibility to make sure that they have what they need. And even when I reach the point where I feel like there's more than what someone might need, like they still struggle. And so, not everyone does, though. They are out there, which is great to know. But it's been a lot of trial and error, and it's definitely helped me kind of hone in on how to go about finding people and what works, what doesn't. Yeah. And I think first and foremost, you got to clearly communicate what you're doing, why you're doing it, why they should care or want to be involved. Give them reasons other than money to care, and then pay them well. Yeah. Right?
They need to care and get paid well, but caring is the first step, right?
If they don't care, then it's always going to be about the money, and you're never going to give them enough. Yeah. And I know that because I've been that person. When I'm in a job where I was only in it for the money, and you get a raise and it's good for a little while, and then you want another raise, and you're like, why do I have to wait 9 more months before we can have this conversation? But if you care, and if you're in it for reasons other than money, then a nice paycheck just kind of, I don't know. From my perspective, it's like the Elmer's glue that holds all the glitter together. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, man, I really love this. There's a turning point, I feel like, of passion, of being a side project in a business, and I think there is definitely a switch there at some point of I'm getting burnt out because I'm putting so much effort and I don't see a payoff. And then there's also the flip side of it where you don't have enough passion and you're just like doing it for the money. Yeah. Both of those situations don't work. Find something right in the middle where you enjoy what you're doing and can live off of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You're right. And I think that can evolve in time too. So like when I started this, I was doing all the writing and I loved the writing. Like, that was fun. And now as my role has shifted, I don't enjoy writing like I used to. I mean, I still do. Yeah. But I don't want to write for clients the way I was. Like I want to focus on other things. I want to write other things. I want to do things that aren't related to my business. But I do now enjoy these other aspects and kind of the CEO role and coordinating the business in different ways. That brings its own joys, I guess, that I wouldn't have even thought about before. Yeah. So comes back to flexibility, I guess. Doesn't it? Yeah.
See, it's like one of the key parts. If you're so hung up on this is how my business works, I only do this thing, then you may be limiting kind of the growth trajectory of where you could or should be going.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows where we're going? I mean, you just got to keep moving. Yeah. Just like keep your feet moving, and if you're working hard and being nice, you'll end up in a good place. I have to believe that. Yeah. Otherwise, I subscribe
to it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. We'll link all of your stuff down in the description of the podcast episode, as well as the blog post on the website, ruralreboot.com. And definitely make sure to keep up to date on all of the blog stuff that you've been doing, because it's good.
Dude, thanks so much for having me, Sage. This is awesome. I appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it.